Okay, I have now had food. I'm also choking on my own tongue, which is not very helpful, but there we go. So, Archer. Oh my god. Oh, Jesus. That's horrible. I'm so sorry. So I want to talk a little bit about Cheryl. Cheryl is Mallory's assistant, secretary person. She starts off in the show as the ditzy secretary. She has an on-off, I'd like to say, relationship with Sterling Archer, but basically he uses her, as does everybody else. It's later discovered that Cheryl's actually the heiress to a great fortune and blah blah blah, and she comes from a severely fucked up family, which isn't explored in a lot of detail, but definitely involves child abuse, incest, and probably war crimes. Cheryl herself is very clearly some kind of mentally ill, and she very much owns the fact that she's crazy. That doesn't necessarily mean she's wrong. I'm assuming she's supposed to be portraying a comedic take on dissociative identity disorder, because she appears to have several different personalities who are all very similar, and often has no memory of what one of them does. She is taken advantage of by pretty much the whole cast in various different ways, emotionally, sexually, professionally, financially. She is a victim of everyone, and it kind of disgusts me. She says she says things that if your friend said them to you, you would be like, I'm going to take you to see a doctor because something is wrong and you need some help. And the staff of the agency just laugh it off. It's not funny. Yeah, Cheryl is possibly one of the saddest characters in the show, and I don't really understand what her point is, other than a plot contrivance to create money sometimes, but that could have been achieved through anything. I don't know. So I talked a little bit about Cyril earlier. He's just an awful human being. He's very much he's portrayed in the show as the archetypal beta male to Sterling Archer's alpha male. He's not physical, he's not practical, he's not a great big action hero. He does have an enormous penis, which is apparently something that people make a big deal out of. Yes, Dane is correct. Cheryl has spent quite a lot of time in mental health inpatient facilities, but she currently appears to be, at least for the duration of the show that I've watched, continuing on and living with her delusions rather than getting treatment for them, even though she should probably still qualify for inpatient therapy. Like, I don't know, it's hard to diagnose a cartoon character, right? But yeah, she's worrying. Yes, Cyril's the beta male. He is played and written to that trope to a T, and the moment he gets a little bit of power, he becomes an insufferable dictator. Which I think is something of a waste of that character. I feel like they could have done a lot more interesting things with Cyril. But you know how TV shows often take caricatures and tropes of the things they are trying to portray, because the easiest way to get through a character trait is to lean on these tropes. And some of the most powerful television comes when people take a trope but they add to it and they put nuance on it, or they blend it with something else. This isn't... This isn't done with Cyril, as far as I can see. And it's a huge waste of the character, because he could have been a really interesting way to explore other definitions of masculinity in universe. But nope. He's just a jerk. Who else have we got? Then there's Ray. Ray is the resident gay guy on the team. He is every camp stereotype you've ever come across. At least in presentation he is. But then in manner he is actually quite effective. He is constantly berated by his colleagues for either being gay, being effeminate, or like his actual other... He does actually have personality flaws that they also rip on, but it is largely being gay and effeminate. And Mallory, who, as I mentioned earlier, she runs the agency. I mean, she's abusive to all her employees, but Ray gets it quite badly because he's gay. And again, that could have been an opportunity to do something more interesting with that character. Oh yes, very good point, thank you. Ray is frequently injured. He is in and out of a wheelchair at various points, and loses a hand at one point, which then gets replaced with a robot hand, but because they were too cheap to sort it out properly, they gave him a leftover robot hand from a black man, so he's now a gay guy with one black hand, and that's obviously the source of a lot of laughs. It's not funny. It's really not. What's the joke? Why is this funny? Why is this a plot point? I don't understand it. But that is a thing that happens. That's more or less it for the main cast of the show. There are various other sort of bit part characters. Mallory's husband, who she constantly abuses and cheats on. Krieger's holographic girlfriend, who is literally an anime waifu. Like, I genuinely struggle to articulate how I feel about Archer, other than it makes me wildly uncomfortable, and not in the way that Frankie Boyle's comedy makes people uncomfortable. Frankie Boyle says things that aren't politically correct, but are self-aware enough to exist. I've expressed that badly. South Park is self-aware, and it discusses its self-awareness within its own narrative, and it doesn't go as far as to explain its jokes, but it's pretty clear about how and why it exists and what its place in the narrative is, and that. Archer does not have that. It's well animated, it's superbly voice acted, it's genuinely very well written. It's got interesting stories, but it's also shit at the same time. I really don't understand. Watching Archer is the media equivalent of a hate fuck and a filthy 4am McDonald's. Like, I think I enjoyed it. I'm not satisfied, and I don't think I got anything of value from it. That's essentially my review of Archer right there. But I don't hate it, and maybe I'll do it again sometime. I don't know. There's a lot to be said about it, and it's very compelling. And I think I've only scratched the surface of it here, but I am ranting unscripted on Facebook Live about thoughts that have been half formed in my head for however many fucking weeks it's been since I sat and binge watched the whole lot of it. So yeah, sort of happy to hear other people's thoughts, but please don't overly justify it to me. Don't try and explain the joke, because I think it's become quite clear that I don't get it, and I don't understand why it's funny, and it's not really my type of humour. The fact that I enjoy it regardless is almost irrelevant to whether I find it funny or not. But yeah, and I've only watched it through the once, and bigger fans of the show than me have probably found lots of inconsistencies or misremembered points in this as I've been talking, because I don't have a reference in front of me on the screen, and it's been a while, so it's not particularly fresh in my memory. But I think for the most part I have at least captured the spirit of it, even if some of the detail is wrong. Who knows? So yeah, Archer. Don't really understand why it's so popular. It's horrible, angry people shouting at each other. Maybe I'll watch the next season when it comes out. Don't know. Cool. I have to think about other media to ramble about now. Happy to take suggestions. I have a lot of thoughts on TV shows, books and films that I've watched. For instance, I sat and watched Too Hot to Handle, that Netflix show that's basically like Love Island without the love, with cock-blocking Alexa in it a few weeks ago. I have a lot of opinions about that. That was quite funny, and also trash. And yet still somehow a better show than Archer. I'm not sure if that's damning on Archer or saying that Too Hot to Handle was surprisingly compelling and fun. I don't know. I have no answers to these questions. All I know is I must consume more media. Yeah, suggest me things if you've enjoyed listening to my opinions. Maybe, I don't know. Or not boss of you. Bye!